Great, and we're live. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us here today on Chainlink Live. I'm Mike from the Chainlink community team. So I'm really excited to have Joseph and Eric from the Auric Network team. Joseph and Eric, thank you, and welcome to Chainlink Live today.
Hi. Thank you, Mike. Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. So just want to give a brief overview to everyone who's tuned in today, what to expect and kind of the goal of the Q&A. So what we will be doing today is we'll be exploring both of the projects, both Chainlink and Auric Network, and kind of the integration between our two teams, and also what is unique and beneficial for each of the users in our communities and using our platforms. So the agenda will be for the first 20 to 30 minutes or so, kind of a Q&A, very informal chat structure where I'll be speaking to both Joseph and Eric. They'll be sharing a little bit more about the project, about Auric Network. And towards the end, if we have some time, those of you who are tuned in live on YouTube, we will try as best as possible to get to your questions. So do leave some questions if you can. We'll try to get to them towards the end. And at the end of the video, we'll also post a few of the links to learn a little bit more about the Auric Network. So yeah, that's basically what to expect. And I guess, without further ado, let's start the AMA. Perhaps Eric and Joseph, if you will, could you guys introduce yourselves and give us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Okay. Eric, did you want to go first, or shall I go first?
I'll leave that up to you, Joseph.
Okay. Actually, just to start off, I guess our project is really the centerpiece of our introduction. Auric Network is the first cross-chain layer 2 liquidity protocol on which we've designed and circulated a non-dilutive elastic currency. Our native token, AUSCM, is an ERC20 cryptocurrency with an elastic supply. That is, it's a rebasing token where the rebasing decisions are made in reference to the price of 1 milligram of gold. This is actually in stark contrast to the money supply and price decisions made by the centralized bodies that currently manage the world's fiat currencies. Our project was formed as an attempt to improve the current and faulty system and provide the community with a better and realistic alternative to the fiat and digital currencies that are currently being used. We aim to create this current cryptocurrency to fulfill the 4 key functions of a properly functioning currency, which, as a reminder to everyone, is a medium of exchange, a unit of account, a store of value, and a standard of deferred payment. And I note the question was about our backgrounds, but it's frankly our backgrounds, our personal backgrounds, and the founding team's background, we believe aren't actually important. They're actually, in fact, irrelevant. We are a DeFi project that aims from inception to be politically, socially, and economically agnostic, staying as faithful as possible to the tenets of DeFi. The protocol and all that grows from it, the team, the product, that is everything. The founders are irrelevant. That is why we've maintained anonymity from the start. The people, including myself, are all but a distraction from what we have promised to do. If you understand our protocol, you'll know that it was designed to operate, grow, and evolve without any one particular person, nor their own selfish agenda. As the key demonstration of this, there were no founder tokens. Liquidity locked tokens were burned as promised. And we want to maintain this type of community-focused, protocol-focused approach as long as possible. The protocol, in closing, this short introduction, is that the protocol is not the founding team. It belongs to you, the community, and the users of the protocol.
I think Joseph summed that up really nicely. I guess I'll, technically speaking, I'm not a representative, or I am representative of Auric Network, but I'm currently the CEO of Diant. Diant is a consulting company based in South Korea. Diant stands for Digital Giant, which is we're a digital transformation consulting company with a specialty in crypto. and in the blockchain space. I've been in the blockchain space for about 6-ish years now. I bought my first Bitcoin, actually, wow, it's been a bit longer. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2011. No, I did not keep it from 2011. I'd be a much happier person. But no, I jumped headfirst into the space in about 2015 and started building blocks, started with community management, doing a couple of for different projects. And then I fully invested 95% of all of my assets into the space, and not just in investments, but as my career. And I've been helping consult projects and funds and exchanges ever since. Diant currently is a 7-person team and expanding. And we started working on Auric actually in their planning stages with their strategy functions and building their business architecture and their blockchain architecture. And I was asked to be here because the actual technical mastermind behind the project, Ichi, is wishes to remain anonymous like everyone else. And I basically consulted throughout their entire blockchain architecture from day one. So I understand it as well as anyone else involved in the project, if not better. And yeah, Auric is a very interesting project because of the fact that they started not with just the DeFi elements of fair distribution, but because they started with that, but they also raised no capital, even publicly, at least on the token angle. And then they put out the project, took 300 of their own ETH and vested it into the project, locked liquidity for 6 months. And then when the 6 months for the lock ended, they burnt, I don't know, like $2.4 million worth in tokens. It's like, yay, gone. And that was a very interesting thing to happen in the space, especially with all the rug pulls and all the scams and all the other things that I've seen in this space. You get burned a lot in 5 years. And yeah, it's a very interesting position to be in. And I don't want to take up too much more time. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, both of you, Joseph and Eric. I think very unique and then very different, I guess, to learn and see that in the industry. So thanks for sharing that. Totally understand the kind of the principles of anonymity there, and appreciate you guys coming on board and also telling us a little bit more about what really the core principles of the project, and kind of diving deeper into the project itself. Perhaps you could share and tell us a little bit more about really what Auric Network is all about, and dive deeper into kind of the problems that it tries to solve.
Eric, I might start this answer, and if you want to contribute to it, please do so. The problems that we aim to solve, and to a degree we've done this already, relate to the interactions that occur between governments and centralized administering bodies, global economies, and us as individuals, but also as communities. History's shown us time and time again that relationships that define these interactions are really dysfunctional. All the economic crises, political instability across the world demonstrate this. Ultimately, everyday citizens are marginalized. They bear the brunt of the instability and the negative impacts that this dysfunctionality causes. Auric Network aims to contribute to solving this fundamental problem through remedying some of the dysfunctionalities that exist at an economic level. We're not a political organization, so we have isolated our efforts to the economic level. More specifically, we focus on the use, circulation, and price determination of currencies. The problems that we specifically aim and are tackling at the moment, I will divide them up into 2 categories. The first one is that fiat currencies have no intrinsic or inherent value. A US dollar bill or a £1 note are literally not worth the paper they are printed on. Their value comes from the value assigned and thus guaranteed by the issuing central bank. The value assigned to it is only as strong as the creditworthiness of the assigning body or the government that backs it. So the reliability of this money and thus its value is heavily tied to the economic and political stability of this money. Thus its value is heavily tied to the economic and political stability of the issuing country. Therefore, the way in which the economy is managed by my country, or also how effectively economies of all the interacting countries are managed, has a large bearing on the security of my hard-earned wealth. As a very simplified example, my government, if it decides to take on irresponsible levels of debt, that indebtedness and the risks associated with it affect my hard-earned wealth and the security of it. Auric, through AUSCM, can be said to possess an intrinsic value by virtue of the gold price referencing that determines the token supply management process within the protocol. The second problem that we are aiming to tackle is the ruling class, in inverted commas, agenda, determine fiscal and monetary policy. So it's the price and the supply of money is determined by another class that we do not belong to. So in traditional centralized economies, the price and the supply of money is determined by the fiscal and monetary policy. Unfortunately, the decisions are not made based on sound economic or even socio-political rationale, but rather a conglomerate product of the agendas and, for the lack of a better term, the ruling class. It's their agenda, not ours. As an example, our welfare and our economic and social well-being do not factor into the process in which interest rates are determined, unless it feeds into the agendas of the aforementioned ruling class. In short, the decisions that determine the price, supply, the speed of the flow of the money in which we store our wealth are not made in our interest. AUSCM supply and price, in response to this problem, are determined solely by market forces, and this is relative to the price of 1 milligram of gold. The process is clear and objective. When change is needed, the changes are implemented as only a manifestation of the agendas of the community through the governance functions and built into the protocols. None of the founders are involved in this process. It's the community that governs all of this.
So, I mean, he covered a lot there, but I guess I'm going to jump in and talk about things a little bit more casually.
Sure.
The first part is he kept referring to as AUSCM, but Mike, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but AUSCM, it stands for AU, which is gold, SCM being synthetic commodity monies. But can you look at it phonetically and just try to pronounce it and read it out loud real quick?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly, I think that's the best idea for the protocol.
Yeah, I realized that too. That's great.
Yeah, Joseph, the number of times I've heard that as a pun, so.
Yeah.
Joseph's originally from traditional finance, so I think he was he's the history's back there. Yeah. So on my end, basically the things that I would like to add, aside from the need for privacy and anonymity and scalable functions of currency, and the economic value that currencies actually produce in terms of the financial ecosystem as a whole. That's a completely that's a very long story to talk about. And to be honest, I could be on here for hours if that's a discussion that we're going to have, because that's why I jumped into this industry in the first place. But basically, I feel like it's very simple. On a technical level, Auric is trying to solve for 3 very simple equations. One, on a real world level, for technicality, is it's trying to find its base as a currency more than anything else. Not because of anything else, but because Auric, because of the fact that it doesn't have the human error factor in the way that supply and demand controls price, which is the biggest key point in a non-dilutive elastic supply. It means that it has a mint that is not controlled by power-hungry people. It's very much 100% decided by the community, which are the shareholders of the ecosystem. Second part is that Auric Network is not really trying to do something that's really never been done, in the sense of building a completely new, different nascent technology. It's not a layer 1 solution, but what they're trying to do is solve for a blanket solution as a layer 2. Any layer 1, any layer 2s, any protocols, any dApps that build on one specific infrastructure, what that means is that if that infrastructure doesn't do well, for example, whether it's Ethereum or Solana or Polkadot or any of these guys, that means the entirety of your project and the future of your project and the scalability of it is completely tied to the success of another team or group of people who believe in one infrastructure and one type of project. This is how entire global economies have failed. And it doesn't change just because we're in crypto. And that also means that your market cap, if you're a DApp and you build on Ethereum, will never surpass Ethereum, no matter what. Same goes for every other chain. They're working on cross-chain liquidity bridges, which is the technology that that is why Chainlink is so relevant for this project. But basically, they want to bridge liquidity, meaning that they want to be a base currency, meaning that they want to be able to make it so that any DApp and any liquidity provider with a protocol, should they want to move from one infrastructure to another, they can for free using Auric. I'm not sure if they've worked out the kinks on whether they're gonna I believe tax a cross-chain bridge system. I'm pretty sure that's gonna go through governance anyway. But yeah, the first 4 chains that they'll be solving to are anything that has to do with an EVM. And so that would be things like XDAI or Matic or your everyone's favorite BSC. But yeah, I think the way that they're tackling the liquidity problem that they're trying to solve for is one of the biggest facets, not just in crypto, but in any asset, period. And you know, currently the most liquid asset in the world is the US dollar. But as crypto grows, as this entire DeFi ecosystem grows, and as CBDCs come out, and as other decentralization happens for currencies and financial ecosystems, there is a very small but completely possible chance that there will be a new contender to the currency war, and that would be somewhere found in crypto. But yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. Since you did mention kind of in passing kind of DeFi and kind of what the industry's kind of leading towards or moving towards, could you perhaps share, both of you, what is kind of on a high level, what is Auric Network's approach to DeFi?
Well, I think I kind of jumped into that, but I guess I'll continue from that. DeFi is a very broadly used term. I feel like decentralized finance in itself, it's just taking a financial ecosystem and then decentralizing it. So yes, there are DeFi projects like Compound, Synthetics, the Ampleforth, and there are all these different types of protocols, and what they really are just complex financial products that already exist in the real world, that are taking these real world type assets and these types of financial products and then putting them on chain and then decentralizing. The basis of Auric is birthed from these types of concepts, but what their approach seems to be in a much deeper sense is, yes, the non-dilutive elastic supply and the rebasing thing. Why? Because what that means is that means that there's a base value behind it, because of the people who are providing liquidity, because of the service providers, because of the way that it's used. Now, the second part that a lot of these other DeFi assets do have, but lack, is the non-dilutive part, which is kind of the importance of them selecting a rebasing currency. The second, and now the third part that it gets into is that instead of picking the US dollar, they picked gold. And when asked why, it was a very simple answer. The reason that the entire financial ecosystem is broken is because we have a financial ecosystem based on the US dollar, which is a debt-based financial ecosystem, because it's no longer backed by anything. And yet there are all these projects that are making rebasing tokens that are based one-to-one with a reference price to the dollar. What happens if that collapses? Then you're building a new financial ecosystem on top of an old one. And because you're trying to make this better or replace it, but if you build on top of it, it's the same foundation. It doesn't make any sense. And then they try to look for a basis of a bunch of other currencies, and they just couldn't find one. And other fiats are also on back. So gold just made the most sense because it's the only asset that was a world-based reserve currency for thousands of years. You can take a piece of gold and you can go anywhere with it, and it still has somewhat close to the same value from one side of the world to the other. And then the last part, which I feel like is some of the most important parts, is that they're trying to become the first rebasing hyperliquid token that is on multiple chains. What that means is without all the fancy words, is that it's using a portion of the incentivization that is caused in the rebasing and the correction as it goes towards a reference price to constantly correct itself across multiple chains. And now we'll get to see a really interesting economic experiment, which is that since block times across different chains, block settlement speeds are completely different. That also means that the rebaser can never be triggered at the same exact moment in time. There will always be a couple seconds, maybe even a couple minutes in delay. What that means is that there's always going to be a constant arbitrage opportunity. But what that also means is that even with the arbitrage opportunity that goes across multiple chains, the thing that changes, the biggest part that changes, is that other currencies, for example, let's say synthetics or anything that doesn't rebase, and let's say I take synthetics and I put it across multiple chains, or I take Tether and I put it across multiple chains, and there's an arbitrage or a price gap that's formed because it's not a fully stable currency. Then what happens is that people have to automatically act as kind of keepers to go back and forth and correct this price. But what will actually happen is, because of a reference price and because it's constantly changing back and forth, it means that the system is auto-correcting itself. So that gap is at least 50% being corrected by the system and not by people. It's automating a bit of the process. And I think we'll get to see a really, really interesting social experiment and economic experiment once those first 2 or 3 cross-chain bridges are formed, which is, Joseph, am I correct that you guys are coming up in like next 2.5, 3 months?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. Yep. If I could just add on to what my associate was saying, is the DeFi, I guess the main aim why DeFi has formed was to divorce finance or economies from the current broken system. But a complete separation or a divorcing from the current system also means that, yes, all the problems are disconnected, but you're also disconnected in an economic sense. So it becomes its own island that can only interact with itself. So it serves no use to the users. The only way we could see that could divorce all the broken aspects, the imperfections of the current system, but maintain a connection to it in a stable way, was to reference the price of gold. So that's been our approach, is to not be completely disconnected such that we become irrelevant, but be disconnected enough from the traditional markets to be able to have a clean slate, a better way on which we can build a better system.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing. Next question here that I had was kind of, learning a little bit more about the governance approach of Auric Network. Could you guys talk a little bit about that, and then how the Auric Network sees governance and really, getting involved, getting the community involved? That's always a huge and important aspect of any protocol, any project in the industry.
So before I go into the governance part, because this is actually my favorite part, not because of anything else, but this is, I feel like governance is one of the most interesting social experiments that we can find in the blockchain space, period. It's something that hasn't been expanded on enough, and it's something that is ever developing and changes on a daily basis. And it's really like on the pinnacle of the bleeding edge in terms of real world implementation, because should it be able to be solved on chain, then there's no reason why it can't be implemented in judicial systems or entire government systems or voting and so on and so forth. And then you can go into like metaverse and testing world regulations in a metaverse and so on and so forth. But skipping past all of that, Auric's very interesting economic design was the fact that their staking pool is actually ever going, and it resets on a 14-day calendar. But the thing is that the way that the staking pool gives out its base rewards is the staking pool is only filled by 10% of a positive rebase. Meaning if a positive rebase doesn't occur, the staking pool stops being filled. But as long as the ecosystem grows, the staking pools also hold. But the interesting part, and where this leads to governance, is that from when the rebaser was turned on and these staking pools were active, any of the rewards that were claimed from the staking pool, 20% was taken out of the pools and dispersed into 4 separate pools. One of these is the Auric governance DAO. The second one was the Auric DAO fund for liquidity protocols or other protocols that wanted to work with Auric. And then the other is the quote unquote dev pool, which is literally the only team allocation, which means that the team only has tokens if the protocol grows. So if the protocol doesn't grow, they don't get any tokens. Meaning that when they listed onto Uniswap, they also had to buy their own supply if they wanted to participate in governance, which is hilarious. And I think it's a very unique approach that not many others have taken. And then the last part is that it goes into a separate community/marketing DAO fund, which is yet to be allocated to any specific source. But the most important part here, since we're talking about governance, is that governance DAO. So the governance is very much referenced on Compound. And the funny part is that they're actually making different changes, and the direction they are going in when we suggested the changes is the same exact direction that Compound ended up going in and updating their governor on. And the reason this is hilarious is because people in Compound, in order for you to put up a vote, you had to have 1%. And then you had to have 4% quorum for that to pass. What this means is you had to control 1% of the supply to even put up a proposal on chain. For a protocol that's like in the hundreds of millions, sorry, I haven't checked the market cap for Compound in a while. Actually, let's look at it now.
Billions, probably.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh, I see hundreds of millions. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nope. So 3.4 billion. You can't really have 1% of that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do, yeah. And so there was less participation, and in order for, and they recently changed that so that you can have X amount to make a proposal, and then it goes through the quorum process. Auric's approach to governance is kind of the same as that, except the difference is that they only had 3 different things that weren't pended to the governance contract. Everything else is controlled by governance. The first part is the actual rebaser algorithm. Why? Because initially, until a network gains enough traffic and has enough participants, which would be at least in the tens to hundreds of thousands of holders, if you give people the rights to mess with the rebaser, which has a minting function, that's probably asking to be DDoSed. I feel like you're asking for manipulation at that point. I believe that there's a little bit of a sense of responsibility from the founding team for any founding team to try to make the system as decentralized as possible, but only if it's safe. Only if you're able to protect the contributors and partakers and supporters of the ecosystem. So the one thing that they kept regarding the rebaser was a guardian for the governance, which is basically that it's not that they can pass anything that they want, it's that they can veto any proposal that might seem like it's being manipulated. They've been very good about putting this out there, and there haven't been much economic exploit attempts on it. So there hasn't been a necessity to use it. And then the second part is that no one's talked or even asked about how this governance DAO is going to be allocated, how it's going to be used. But if you look at this governance DAO now, for a project that started with $300,000 market cap, the governance DAO itself right now is about $1.5 million worth in tokens. And it hasn't moved. Oh, sorry, 1.36. It hasn't moved, not a dime. It's just been sitting there waiting. And what this kind of creates an approach for, what this allows for people to kind of do and partake in is now to be decided by governance. They literally built a governance DAO, made no rules about how this would be allocated, and then said, hey, you guys propose how this will be used. And at the beginning, no one cared because it was, I don't know, like $10,000, $15,000 among however many holders. But now it's 1.3 million. The question is, what do the community members, what do the participants actually want to do with this? And now for the new proposals, I believe you just need 10,000 awesomes, which is like to put up a proposal. You still need 4% quorum, but to put up a proposal, you just need 10,000 awesomes. Sorry, I think it's 9,000 awesomes, and in 9,000 awesomes at the current price of approximately around 5 cents is, well, pennies on the dollar. You need like $500 to be able to try it. It lowered the limitation, the capital limits for people all over the world, no matter what country you're from, whether you're from a first world country or a third world country, to be able to participate as a stakeholder, to talk about the things that you want to happen. And I feel like that is realistically the beauty of it. It adheres to sound economic principles and really talks about the message for financial democracy and financial inclusion that other projects have really talked about, but has yet to come into fruition. And they did it really early in a stage where it didn't make sense economically for the team to. So they took a really big risk. And I really value that in a team. I value that in a development team or even a business owner, because I mean, it's not the high risk, high return part. It's taking responsibility for actions, even if everything thinks you're a scam. And I respect that they really stuck to their core principles on that. And yeah.
Eric, thank you for saying that. Actually, that's it's really valuable that you appreciate that, because that was one of the core principles on which we built the project, was that we were seeing all too often that the current political structures, economic structures of the world, they were foregoing the long-term success, long-term benefits for short-term gain. So it's nice to be recognized on that front. Thank you.
I feel like it's even worse in the crypto space. Like,
yeah,
it just because there have been so many faulty projects, and I do understand, right? Like, I think the number that Chainalysis put out was that there was like 120 million or something in rug pulls last year. Like, I'm sorry, but 120 million dollars is a lot of money. It's life-changing sums for small countries, let alone people. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, guys. That's really admirable. I think it's amazing to see how closely aligned and how in terms of the incentives the team has, and really working on the governance aspect and working very closely with the community, making sure it's really a long-term thing. And I think that's the most important thing we can see, and what the community appreciates. So that's amazing. Great to hear that, and I'm sure the community really appreciates that as well, as they learn more and get involved really in the Auric network. So the next question I had, and this is my favorite one, of course, is how are you guys working with Chainlink? How, what are the use cases with kind of the decentralized Oracle network that we have here at Chainlink?
Yeah, this one falls on me because I've actually been the one doing the most liaising. And first, before I start, I would love to thank the Chainlink team for the work that they're actually doing. And I'm going to go into a couple of factors before I actually jump in. Basically, Auric needed reference price data for all of their future plans. And the thing is that they have a very long roadmap that was planned out. And the thing is that even how it's marketed and explained is broken down into phases. Because if they jumped in at a $300,000 market cap and they said, hey, we're going to change the world and become the base currency of crypto, you'll be a laughing stock in this space. And the fact is that you have to understand the nascent technologies that go into it. And it's actually a very complex ecosystem. More than most of the projects that I've analyzed, and I've been in the space for quite a bit of time. But basically, they needed honorable price feeds. They needed trustworthy data on a trustless network, because that's where the easiest economic exploits are. And they looked into different solutions like API 3, I believe it was Band, and a few others that are providing Oracle data. And it's not to throw any shade on any of these projects. I think they're doing wonderfully in their own way. But after looking at all the data and the integrity of the price feeds and the focus of the teams and what the core values were, it tied to Chainlink the best, and they jumped in there. Now, the reason that these price feeds are very important is very simple. Those liquidity bridges. Those liquidity bridges jump in on a way and on a method that has yet to be seen. We talked about IBCs for a long time, right? And for those of you who don't know, inter-blockchain communications. And basically, it breaks down to 3 parts for the non-technical people. First, communicating data from one chain to another. So this is where the price feed comes in. So that could be a price, that could be a time, that could be any piece of data that goes from one chain's network to another. 2 is now exchanging value from one network to another. This is basically saying, hey, can I send Matic to BSC? And yeah, you could do that on centralized networks, and that's how you're able to do the swaps. But even whether you're looking at Uniswap or whether you're looking at any other DEXs, it's almost impossible for you to exchange one asset for another or move one asset to a different chain. But in order for you to do that, and the reason that's impossible is because people didn't look at bridging tokens as a liquidity bridge, because you're not trying to bridge the token itself. You're just trying to bridge, one, the data that it holds, to the nature and functionality of the token itself, and the value, the dollar for dollar value. And I hate the fact that I'm having to use the unit dollar because, well, that's a base unit of any currency that we talk about. And then the last part is that it creates a foreign exchange rate or a currency exchange rate. So this is where the Forex market part comes in. This is where it gets very interesting, because I believe that the best comparison in the real world to Auric is the Forex markets and the US dollar's effect on Forex markets. Most people don't know this, but when you're exchanging from British pounds to Japanese yen or KRW to euros, the unit of account for that single unit, the 1-for-1 unit that's used in the middle, is $1. Why?
Yep.
Why? Because you need to be able to account for it, and it's an accounting system, right? This is mind-boggling. But this goes across everything. It's just that unit of one. The entire story of the currency war between like China, Russia, and like all of these wars that have happened, including the Cold War, it was all based on the currency war. And all they were trying to control is that one unit of account that would go across the board for everyone. And yes, the US dollar won. But in order for you to retain that unit of account that won, that means every other data feed that goes and connects to that one, wherever it's compared to in the Forex markets or in any other market or any other chain, it has to be the correct data. And it has to be checked on both sides. And the integrity of the data cannot be compromised, period. Otherwise, you compromise the entire exchange rate ecosystem. And that's where the US dollar was able to shine. And that means whatever data feed that's going back and forth, whatever unit of account, the trustworthy systems on a trustless network have to be as clean and as specific and as decentralized as possible without the possibility of exploited corruption. And yeah, nothing's unhackable, but the closest solution that they found was Chainlink. And so the most interesting integration they're looking at is the fact that in order for you to rebase off of the asset of AUSCMs on the Ethereum network, which has the most adoption, which has the most liquidity, which has the most people on it. It has the most person-for-person liquidity, not just the dollar side, right? And in order for you to bridge that to one place, what you could do is you could create keeper functions and oracles across every chain. But the thing is that then you can't reference one price, which makes it a really big pain. And what they're trying to do in this development with Chainlink is to reference one price from Ethereum and translate that data via IBCs, inter-blockchain communications, to other networks and other chains. And the funny part is when I ended up contacting the Chainlink team with one of the core developers that are working on Auric, we got to hear about your guys' roadmap. And the funny part about your roadmap and your Oracle development is that it perfectly aligned in timeline with everything that they were trying to build on this side, whether it was your oracles for other non-EVM based tokens or other mainnet chains in general. And it just really made sense. And not to mention that you guys are very supportive and in the beginning, we were trying to pull this quote and this price just from Uniswap. And you guys were working on this development of Uniquote, I believe. I'm not sure if, I mean, the code's up on GitHub, so it's not really hidden. But the entire project got tanked because Uniswap decided out of nowhere to be like, hey, we're making V3. I mean, it didn't get tanked, but all the development efforts were changed in comparison to need because of the fact that V3 was completely unannounced and was like, here you go. And then that also, from my conversation with Ichi, also dropped a bomb on the Auric guys because, hey, now we can't use now they can't use Uniquote anymore. So their development got backstage and they spent weeks to try to catch up again with the bridges, which I think they've been able to fully test through and kind of get on. And so we were very excited, not just by the support, but the fact that we get to build something together in the function of the same principles of integrity on both data and value. Chainlink really does focus from what we've been able to see on providing high quality data, having reliable nodes, a fully decentralized infrastructure in which your keepers and value rewards are very nascent. And you guys are very transparent with your performance. And my last key point, and the thing that matters to me most, is that you guys will go out of your way to support other projects, even though it doesn't have economic value yet. Because 90% of the projects that will probably come to use any of these price feeds will be just like the other 90% of the projects in this space, which will probably never end up building what they said they're building. And it's not, and I'm not throwing shade on projects. I'm just trying to say that in every technological evolution that's ever happened, including the initial size of the stock market, the .com era, and the first computers and so on and so forth, it is when the easiest track record of a bubble happening means that there's opportunity for an unregulated asset and for people to make money and raise funds off of it. And to be honest, 90% of all those industries either fail or scams. That was true for the .com bubble on multiple fronts. And it's been true throughout history. And as a survivor of that multiple long crypto winters, especially this last one that we came out of, it's about the people who continue to build, who live up to the simple promises that they make, not the giant ones, and can constantly show active transparency and are willing to take the long haul bet that really make the difference and really last and form up to be the next, Googles or Facebooks or Microsofts or bigger tech tycoons and unicorns. And when I saw that this weird dysfunctional team of the most random group of people that I've ever jumped onto a Zoom call with, we're working on this, I was really excited. I was really excited that they decided to take on Satoshi's original vision of creating a currency and ran with it. Because the thing is what's really funny is that there's all these financial platforms and complex financial products that are way harder to form than a currency. But no one's really tackling the currency problem in crypto anymore, aside from the people who are issuing CBDCs and stablecoins. Like, it's weird. It's weird to see that that's what it started on. But no one's working on it anymore. And when this team was like, let's go, I mean, yeah, it just made sense. That, and I'm
Great.
all for New World Order.
You can tell he's
It's
excited.
awesome.
Yeah,
Absolutely. No, I'm loving the passion. I love hearing it. Thank you for sharing that, and also thank you for the kind words. And Chainlink, we're here to help, and we're really happy to support the Auric Network and really enable and empower you guys building the best product and then the best platform you can for the community, because that's really what it's all about. So it's great to see, and happy to continue doing that. That's amazing. I was going to ask also about kind of the role of the community, but I think you guys already touched a little bit on that when we talked about governance earlier. And I'm cognizant of the fact that we have 10 minutes or so left in the call today. But yeah, so yeah, if there's anything else you wanted to add to that, otherwise we can kind of move on to the last question. Is there anything you wanted to share about the community, or your thoughts on how it plays in growing the Auric network, aside from what you mentioned earlier in governance?
I just want to say one thing, and it's actually not something to emphasize on the community. It's more to speak actually directly to the community. Anyone who ever watches this video, whether you're part of the Chainlink audience, or you're tuning in because you're part of the Auric community, or that you're just looking for new protocols to look into and contribute to, whether you're a developer, whether you're a community member, a marketer, or even just someone who buys tokens, or someone who supports crypto projects by investing into them. But it's very simple. Auric is probably one of the simplest products to get involved in without much capital or having a bigger part of the pool. But there's not enough involvement. The keys have been passed to the community. What you guys do with it, how you jump on, how you decide to run with it, and the feedback that you offer to the inside of the team, that's what will change this and make this level up. That's what will create the movement in the first place. I'm not telling you to go buy all of a sudden. What I'm trying to tell you is although I'm not going to stop you either, but what I am trying to tell you is that it's very easy to get involved, whether it's through the Discord or the Telegram or participating in governance. That's what they want. That's what they built the entire emphasis on. So it's not on them, it's on you.
Yeah. I know we are short on time, but I just wanted to build a bit on what Eric has just said. The Auric is the community itself. It's a personification of the community. So whatever it becomes from here on in is dependent on your participation. And like Eric said, it's not about going to buy it. Get involved in governance, get involved, watch it. And just as much as it is up to you guys and how you get involved and how much you get committed to the protocol itself. It's also, I also want to thank everyone who's involved so far for their patience. Everyone's been very appreciative that building a quality product does take time. It's not about getting first to market, it's putting a good product out there. So we want to thank you for that continued support, and thank you in advance for the support that we will receive from you in the future.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I guess the last question here is, could you share a little bit more about what the community can expect really for the rest of the 2021? What does kind of the product roadmap look like, and what is it that Auric Network is currently focusing on?
I guess I literally have the roadmap in front of me, and I was working on it before I jumped on this call because I was helping them plan a marketing roadmap. But basically, it's very simple. I think the product updates are probably what we want to talk about, since we're already into Q2 of 2021. To bring it up, today, Auric listed onto Biki about 2 hours and 52 minutes ago. It will continue listing onto multiple different exchanges to create a diverse platform because of the fact that they're trying to become a very, very hyper liquid currency, although they already have 8.8 million locked on, or 8.8 million in liquidity just on Uniswap alone, but which is, sorry, insane for a product that's only 40 million in capital. But anyway, no, I believe my favorite part and most exciting part is the new governance UI, which they did model partially off of the Compound governance UI. That makes it possible for full support of on-chain governance, including proposals, voting, delegation of votes, discussing new ideas, new landing page, new dashboard. Should be out within the next week or two, I believe. They're working on the final bugs of the front end, and including Chainlink's awesome price feed oracle. And the governance proposal rate, change of governance quorum, which will be from 1% to 4%. The change of rebaser frequency from the 12 to 24 hours, what was done last year. But it will be building the initial bridge, which should lower transaction costs even more, even after EIP 1559, which we're also all excited for. And then the multi-chain escrow, which is also something that's being worked on with Chainlink, which will increase the scaling factor of not only Auric Network, but any layer 2s or any dApps that decide to use Auric cross-chain bridges to bridge their liquidity from one network to another. And they'll be supporting, I believe they start with any of the EVMs. So the roadmap is XDAI, Matic, BSC, and then I believe they have two others, which is not on here. And then they'll be bridging to any of the non-EVMs, which will probably be either they'll be starting with any of the above, which is Polkadot, Cosmos, Near Protocol, Solana, so on and so forth. And this is all coming within like the next 3 to 6 months, which is, I still think it's insane. Most people build like one bridge over a period of 3 to 6 months, and then they do another one in 3 to 6 months. Especially with the team of the size that they have, but they're just like, and then the other part is they believe in creating use cases. So I believe that's where Joseph jumps in the most. He definitely, from my understanding, he definitely handles the real world side of the business most, which is partnership with real companies that aren't in the crypto space, like existing businesses. And which works on their first partnership, which was with the Mind Foundation platform. And Mind Foundation, which is fully, and Auric Network, which is partnered with a public listed company on the London Stock Exchange. And there's multiple partnerships with government-backed agencies, foreign governments, I believe a power plant based out of Mongolia, although I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about that, Joseph. Sorry.
Too late.
And they're really in partnership and operations with Mind Foundation. They're releasing an investment platform for commodities to introduce the world to what they've coined the name of hi-fi, which is hybrid finance. It's a mixture of what is necessary in the trust versus trustless, which is CeFi and DeFi. And the entire platform will support both ERC-20s, ERC-721s, and ERC-1155s, and introduce a trust framework, which is completely open source, token issuance platform, which includes, through a crowdfunding, they have a legal framework that is completely on-chain that allows for people through governance that if anything ever goes wrong with the crowdfunding types of projects they invest into, that a percentage of the funds raised would always be locked in this on-chain escrow that can be directly reallocated to legal firms all over the world. I believe they have a list of probably about 320 firms that will accept crypto as payments. And they get to pick which legal firms, which will handle the cases for anything that goes wrong in the crowdfunding process or the fundraising process, which is very exciting stuff because, I mean, even like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, like I can't tell you how many Indiegogo things that I've invested into that I never got the product for like 3 years and I still haven't gotten it. Yeah, that's you. You know who I'm talking about. But Yeah, and the last part, which I think is the most exciting, is all the strategic alliance announcements. I mean, Chainlink was a big deal, especially for the team and the nascent technologies. But the announcements that are to come with existing government agencies and where Auric will be accepted in terms of use as a currency over the next 6 to 9 months, that's what's really exciting for me. Yeah, all I can say is stay tuned. All I can say is they're a project that speaks from action. If you look through any of their documents, they don't have many dates, unless it's like exact, because projects will, for example, like sorry Vitalik if you're watching this, but I mean, Ethereum 2.0 has been delayed for like 1.5 years, 2 years. But it's not their fault. They're trying to create a system, but when you're building stuff happens. Life happens, economies getting, technologies change, liquidity function, scalability, all of that is based on it. And so instead of giving out roadmaps, they just say, hey, it'll be around this time, and then they just build it and release it earlier, which I think is really cool. It kind of takes away from the shrouding of the anonymity factor. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing this. That's really a lot of things you guys
No
are
pun
working on in
intended.
the next few months. Yeah, indeed. Joseph, was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I think Eric said it all. There is a lot coming up. You can probably tell from I don't know if the camera shows it, but he's got some bags under his eyes. Many sleepless nights for him and the team. So a big shout out to them for all their efforts as well. But we have got a lot planned. So watch this space.
Absolutely. And where can the audience, where can the community kind of follow the progress of Auric Network? Where would be best place for them to kind of follow and ask questions?
I think the best place to look would probably be the Auric website, not the platform. The website is auric.network. And on there's all the socials, Twitter, Telegram, Discord, Medium, so on and so forth. That's all in there. I mean, they're pretty old fashioned, but you can literally directly email the team and they'll reply to you. I mean,
sorry, that old fashioned reference was to me, wasn't it, Eric? So.
No comment.
Guilty as charged.
I plead the fifth.
Yes, we do take an open dialogue policy with our community as well. So emails, all the traditional methods are also available as well. Short of actually putting up a phone number, everything else is available to you.
Excellent. And we'll be sure to add all those links in the description below here in this YouTube video. Well, that's great, guys. That's a lot of information, a lot of exciting stuff that Auric Network is working on. For those who have been watching and been tuning into the live stream, thank you guys so much for joining us today. This will, of course, be available for you guys on YouTube as well to rewatch and kind of check out a little bit more on the details. But that pretty much wraps up our Q&A for today. I want to thank both of you, Joseph and Eric, for joining us here. I really appreciate you spending the time with us in the Chainlink community, and also for the Auric community for joining us today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, community. Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm sad that Nisha couldn't be here, but I hope I filled in.
Absolutely. I want to thank the rest of the community. All of you guys are tuned in. Thank you guys for joining us. I want to give a shout out to my colleague, Juan, as well, who's been manning the YouTube live chat. Thank you so much for your help. Everyone else, please do hit the like button here and subscribe to the official Chainlink YouTube channel and hit the bell button so that you get notified when we have these live streams. Once again, thank you both, Joseph and Eric. You guys have a great day ahead. I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.